Hello and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn session. Today we have Sherif.Hassan joining us to showcase Re-Leased. Re-Leased is property management software that's reimagining commercial real estate for property managers. It's a global, cloud-based commercial property management software. The industry-leading solution is designed for property owners and managers of both residential and commercial properties. With an easy-to-use dashboard, automated workflows, Re-Leased lets you focus on growing your business whilst mitigating risks associated with managing commercial properties. It centralizes your property portfolio and management team to gain real-time insights into your property and tenancies. So, excellent. So I'd like to hand over to you, Sherif, to share with us everything about Re-Leased.
I think you've already done a pretty good job. I think we can end the session there with that introduction, but no, thank you very much.
There's more to be shared. It's nice to just wrap it up tightly and then let people know what they're getting in for.
No, that was great. No, so thank you, Heather, for having me today, and we're very happy to be representing Re-Leased. Let's get a quick thumbs up that my screen is showing up on everyone else's end. Perfect, great, yep. Great to meet you all. Some of you I may have met before, some of you I haven't, but lovely to be speaking with you today, and thank you for the opportunity to take you through Re-Leased, how we work and how we could potentially benefit yourselves and more importantly your clients. So a little bit about myself before we get started. So I joined apart from so I've been with Re-Leased for about 5 years now, and I personally joined Re-Leased. I think this is an important part of my story, is that I came from another tech company where they had a fantastic product, but they didn't really solve the biggest need or biggest problem for their clients. So when I joined Re-Leased and Tom, the founder, approached me, one of the first things I did was say, I want to talk to some of your customers first. I want to understand exactly how they use it. And all of them shared the same sentiment. Most of them had come from spreadsheets. They were using an app like Xero, but a lot of the work that they were doing was done on property. What was done manually. They were missing certain critical dates around their leases. There was a lot of double entry of information, and overall, after using Re-Leased, people were getting more time on golf. Story of a guy who hadn't been on holiday for about 14 years and was able to do so afterwards. It's really powerful, and the larger portfolio you have, the more powerful a system like Re-Leased is. So personally, I have a team of 6 or 7 of us who work across Australia and New Zealand, working with our clients to understand how can we reduce wasted hours spent on those manual management processes, increase the visibility, particularly between departments where very commonly the property and the accounts team are very segregated and there's very little communication, which tends to cause a lot of friction, but also drive a higher return in terms of that portfolio value. How can we actually get more out of that, out of your assets by managing them better? So that's really in a nutshell here. Property management is changing faster than ever, and our overall goal is to keep pace with that and stay ahead of the market by delivering an industry-leading property management solution. And we do so by being really focused in terms of this is what we do, property management really well. And we got a bit of a audio there. We're good to go. All right, so as I was saying, so we're in the cloud ecosystem, which everyone here is surely very familiar of, considering they're on this call. We are focusing on being by focusing purely on the property management side and integrating with the best of breed solutions in accounting and inspection management and everything else around it. It really helps us focus on being that industry leading system. So a bit about our credentials and essentially why you should listen to us and why it might be a good idea for your clients to look at Re-Leased. We've got a large team that's grown from when I started, we were about 15 people to now about 130 across 1,000 different customers, and within those 1,000 customers, 3,000 different Xero connections. So it's very much a tried and tested integration. That it's a two-way integration that saves a lot of time. We process over $6.5 billion of rent per month through our system. And what that allows us to do is gather a huge amount of intel over how people are managing portfolios. And that's driven directly back into how we develop the system and make it better. Cool. So what is Re-Leased and how does it work? It's one central source of truth. It's a cloud-based system that holds all the information that the accounting system doesn't. It puts a property lens over the portfolio to really give you information about all of your properties and assets, all of the tenants and their leases that integrate with them, and then tracks all of the information around them for years to come. So I know exactly how much money I'm making from this tenant in 3 years' time, because I've got that information loaded into Re-Leased. I know when their option dates, if they need to tell me 6 months before their lease expiry that they're going to stay on and want to extend their lease, that all of these are programmed into the system, and then we'll talk to myself in the calendar, and then also then links into a heap of other third-party apps like your Outlook calendar or your Google Calendar, and sends you those emails to let you know well in advance. The critical date management is one aspect of it, but also being able to track things like outgoings and the rent and arrears. In Xero, a lot of the time, that's just a number. What this does is understand, okay, this is the money that belongs to this tenant, whether it's rent or outgoings that's being charged. Very commonly in commercial property, you charge outgoings based on their, what percentage of that property do they occupy? So how much of the water bill are they going to pay? As a very simple example, a lot of that is then automated and calculated and recorded in a system that's easily accessible from everyone involved with the property management, whether it's the accountants, whether it's the property team, management team, etc. So before Re-Leased, most of our customers use data that's stored on either non-secure or unsync devices, and that could be ranging from spreadsheets all the way through to diaries, which I still see, physical paper and pen, which I still see very, very often. No live financial data to assess current business position. A lot of that is, the time delay between getting the reports you need from Xero and then understanding what that means from a property point of view can mean that by the time you've got that information, it's probably already lagging. It doesn't give you that live view. It's not centralized, which is obviously, as with most apps that you would integrate with, a benefit of that is having a central source of truth that you're all speaking from the same or singing from the same song sheet, essentially, with the information that you have in front of you, and you've got less room for error. And particularly in property, with things like compliance, it can be very costly if you miss an important date, like a building warrant of fitness, or you might end up having a property that's vacant sitting on the market because you didn't get across the lease in time. And the reason why the technology, so in the property industry specifically, it's tends to be a lot further behind other industries when it comes to tech, and it's just because it's been so profitable for so long, just the way it is. It's up until very recently, it's been enough to just hold an asset and it will make a lot of money for you. But with the recent changes, particularly with COVID, being able to access that information, the requirements of tenants, a lot of like rental rebates or concessions applied. It's not just a nice to have, it's now a need or a must to have a system like this to track all that information and what's happening across the portfolio. So how we work with accountants specifically is essentially, it's a lot of the benefits will be realized directly by the clients, but there's also some key benefits that we like to share with our accounting partners. Number one, obviously, is promoting digital innovation. I know it's the last on the list, but again, everyone that's on this call is because they've bought into that concept of being advisors to their clientele, giving you that access to information as well around their portfolio. If you're getting the information and you need to know what's happening with particular tenants, etc., that having access to Xero isn't the only thing you can have. You can have access directly to Re-Leased, which will help you get the key financial information that you need, and increase overall better service and value to that client, that end client as well. Cool. Wanted to give you an example of what a sample Re-Leased tech stack looks like. Now this is kind of at the very high end or upper end of clients who will have a lot of systems, and they might be more complex organizations. You could start with just Xero and Re-Leased. but then you'll be familiar with a lot of the Xero integration partners there, like Receipt Bank and Expensify, etc. We also, from the property perspective, we then integrate with apps that help you with inspections, with the maintenance side of Re-Leased, other bankings or property data. And then we get into more communication productivity apps like your Office 365, your G Suite, etc. as well. So we're a big believers and promoters of really identifying what your needs are as an organization, and knowing that in an ecosystem like we have here, you can tick all those boxes but still have the systems talk to each other, and that's what really our overall end goal is. I'm going to skip over that one. And for your clients, one of the main questions that they will have is, how do we move? What does it look like going onto a system like Re-Leased, especially if they've been using spreadsheets for so long? A lot of the times and the triggers that we would be talking to people out there in the market, very commonly you'd have people, a generation who's been managing their properties for a lifetime. They're looking to pass that on to their kids, who are now coming in. They've got no interest in property management, but their parents have been doing it in this way for so long, so they're looking to bring a system on to do that. So that uptake of the technology, it's we've really built and developed a process where we can bring clients on board onto Re-Leased as streamlined, as swiftly as possible, but also making sure that it's as little disruption to their day-to-day, by actually taking their data off them on a spreadsheet format, loading it into Re-Leased, giving them the training that they need, and we've got the post support, go live data there as well. Our customer base, and some of these names here you're gonna recognize, some of them you might not. Our business structure and our product offering services two key markets. One of them are your property management companies, like the ones you see here, like the Harcourts and the Alger Hookers, etc. Those have a trust account. Those require trust accounting, and we've got a version of Re-Leased which has that trust accounting in it. So we offer that as well. The other half are those landlords. We call them landlords, which is a very, very broad term, who own property but manage the properties themselves. And they would typically use an accounting app like Xero to do that. And so for that market segment, we say, great, we'll let Xero carry the accounting burden side. We've just developed the property management side. So our customer base is about 50-50 between those two types of customers. But it's, if I'm honest, we're actually leaning on more towards wanting to service more on the landlord side, because we, as I mentioned earlier, our preference is to be the best property management app and let the accounting apps take care of being the best accounting apps in the market. Cool. Just a quick note on who Re-Leased isn't for. I think it's important to make that distinction, is that anyone who outsources their portfolios and managed by a third party, they probably wouldn't realize the value of investing in a tool like Re-Leased. A lot of that is about cutting costs in terms of management fee costs, and deciding to manage your own portfolio in-house. Our portfolio for Re-Leased to be really worthwhile on the residential side, they'd have to have at least 40 properties or 40 tenants that use the that rent from them to make this worthwhile. On the commercial side, that's a lot less, and that's because on the commercial side, it is our main focus, and it's also, there's a lot more complexities around outgoings management and GST, etc. that Re-Leased caters for that other apps in the market don't. It is purely for the property management side. So if it's a construction company or development company, it's not a project management tool from that side. It's more so once the property is tenanted, how do you manage and track those leases? And also property management agencies, as residential property management agencies are not our target market either. So if I go back to that previous slide, all of these agencies here, they're purely on the commercial side. But when it comes to landlords and integrating into a system like Xero, we are the only ones that do that in a two-way format. So we're very happy to work with both residential and commercial on that sense as well. Now, with the time that I have left, I wanted to share my screen with you and give you a quick tour of what it actually looks like in practice. So if I jump across the tab here, here's something I prepared earlier. I've signed into my Re-Leased account and I've been able to action, so landed right here on the dashboard. The dashboard of Re-Leased gives me an oversight in terms of what's happening across my portfolio on a day-to-day basis. I've got the key feature here being my calendar that it's color coordinated based on the types of events that happen across my portfolio, whether it's a maintenance task or a renewal. I've got an OPEX budget or annual operating expense budget here that I've got a reconciliation for that I need to action. And you can see here we've got these solid blocks, but also these transparent reminders, because very often in these portfolios, you need to, in property, you need to know about a task well in advance. Knowing about the renewal on the day is not very helpful. So you can kind of code this and set this up so that it gives you the reminders as and when you need them. It gives you the ability to sync this across to your normal day-to-day calendar, whether that's Google Calendar or Office 365 calendar or Outlook. And you've also got the team view. Kind of doubling down on what I was saying before about being able to have a connected team. So you can see across each other's calendars if someone leaves the business then or is away, that information isn't locked in their heads. It's all hard coded into the system. You've got that information in here. An important question that I often get is around, so with Xero, you might have multiple different entities and you set up with, but within Re-Leased, you only need the one account that can then link across to multiple entities that have been set up there as well. Here's a list of my properties that I can scroll through. You can see I've got a lot of different property types, from residential to commercial to public, government buildings, industrial, etc. So it does cater for a whole heap of those property types, but I'm going to use a search bar here and give you an example of a commercial property. So this is what I see when I first land on a property page. I've got the key details of the building. I can scroll down and see all of the current tenants that are in there, and also a preview of their leases, and even a colored bar that starts to turn red, excuse me, as it reaches its expiry. So it's a visual aid there that tells me this is where this tenant's sitting. It then breaks down the property for me into specific property information as well, like the different areas within that building, the different car parks, who's leasing them, who are all my key contacts that are in there, who are my preferred suppliers. So one of the things we offer is our mobile apps for everyone involved with the property, starting with the landlord or the property manager and the tenant themselves. So if a tenant's got an issue, for example, their air conditioning unit's not working, they can take a picture of it, log that, and send that. That'll go directly to the property manager, rather than playing chase on a phone to try and get someone to follow up with that task. And you'll be able to track that all the way through to the air conditioning person coming in, fixing it, and then invoicing, and that syncs across all the way across the board there. Now with the integration, I mentioned Xero a lot. Xero is our main has been our main partner in terms of the accounting side up until now. It's a two-way sync for most of the integration points. So you've got invoices which flow both ways. Any change or credit applied or edits that's done in either system is going to update on the other side. You also have the chart of accounts, the tax types, and primarily the systems talk to each other using the tracking categories, which we use one of the tracking categories as a property name, and that's how the two systems then know how to communicate with each other. Cool. It also houses a document storage system where you can keep all of your property documents and lease documents all again in one place. We don't cap the number of or the size or the number of documents you can keep in here. We really do want it to be the one-stop shop. It's an easy drag and drop to update this information. We've got key management system in here as well, and then a way to manage different outgoings for different properties. On the tenancy side or the lease side, it's a very similar layout, but it's everything really focused on the lease itself. So who are my key contacts in their lease? What are the terms of their agreement? You can see here, I can have different people with different roles on the tenant side. So it's someone who gets the invoices, someone else who I deal with for maintenances, etc. Then I can break down with their particular lease, these are the areas of the building that they're occupying, how long their lease term is for, if they have any rights or right of renewal options, extensions, etc. And then we get into the invoicing side. So within the tenancy side for each tenant, what will happen is you will set up the invoice template, the frequency of their billing, and you've got here all the details of how the tenant's billed. And what will happen is every time that rent is due, an invoice will automatically be generated from Re-Leased and copied across to Xero. When the payment gets then reconciled in Xero, that automatically updates Re-Leased and marks that invoice is paid as well. So they've got that two-way sync, and they know as well by, if I click on this heart icon at the top, I can see when the last sync was as well. So I know that it is up to date as of 10:46 this morning. On the while we're talking about the property side and the outgoing side, this is very much specifically in the commercial side. But one of the big problems that we often face for people in managing it is how they track and manage outgoings for their tenants. Within Re-Leased, we can set up. There's a few ways if you can do it. You can set up a utility meter where you can put in readings each month, and that will calculate each tenant's apportionment. Or you can set up direct on-charge rules, which say, as an example, every time I get a bill for that's for repairs and maintenance for chart of account code 473, I want to then directly on-charge it through to the tenant or tenants using this allocation or apportionment. So I can set that up again within Re-Leased here. If I have any properties, and again, particularly in the commercial side, where I might have a budget for the year, I can set up an outgoings budget. And specify, so this was an older one from 2017, 2018, I can see these are all of my budgeted costs and what I was expecting, and an allocation for each tenant, and then the total amount they're calculated for that each tenant is paying throughout the year. So that will split that across their rental invoice, and I can see that's been automatically added to that rental template as an OPEX line. And what will happen is throughout the year, every time I receive an invoice, that'll automatically track that budgets versus actuals for me. So when I come to do a wash up, at the moment, people are doing this very manually on spreadsheets. It takes weeks at a time to actually get this done. And then there's a lot of disputing with the tenants, etc. as well. You put one figure in the wrong place, it's going to have an on-flow effect that's quite bad. But what it does here, because it's tracking those invoices for you throughout the year, when you come to a budget end and you do a reconciliation, it will automatically have all of the figures pulled through for what the budgeted was versus the actuals. You can go through and see and make audit and make sure that those invoices are all been coded correctly and they are matched up correctly. And when you mark that as complete, that will do the calculation for you. And then if there's any discrepancies or adjustment invoices that need to be issued or credit notes, that will be calculated automatically for each tenant, and you can then send that across. So you've got accuracy and you've also got timeliness of how quickly you can finish that process. We also have a reporting side to Re-Leased as well that comes in two formats. We've got over 60 different reports here that are very much on the property side. Of course, Xero will still carry the main financial reporting, but within Re-Leased, like something like a tenancy schedule or a maintenance report or anything that you need from the property side is going to be generated from within here as well. Now, I think that's all the time I have for today. There's lots and lots I could go on about. I'm sure you can tell my voice, my level of passion for it. But it's been really great to take you guys through Re-Leased today.
Thank you so much, Sherif, for taking us through Re-Leased. It's the perfect solution for that type of business, and it's a very comprehensive solution. Now, does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have any questions? I know someone's popped in the chat area. If you've got any questions in the chat area, or you can jump on screen and ask a question. Okay, so I wanted to confirm with you that Re-Leased does include a trust account. Whereabouts how does it include the trust account?
So what you're seeing here within Re-Leased.
Oh, there's a black bar on your screen. There's a big black box on your screen now.
Oh, that is the chat box. Let me move that out of the way. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, so what you're seeing here is my version of Re-Leased that's for landlords that integrates with accounting systems. And sorry, one thing that I forgot to mention around that. So what I was saying was that Xero is our main accounting platform that we connect with, but we also now integrate with QuickBooks Online, and we soon will be integrating with some kind of bigger systems like Oracle, NetSuite, Sage, and Microsoft Business Central as well. So that's for more complex entity structures where Xero might not work quite as well. We're solving that problem there. But yeah, to your point, Heather, was if I log into a different version of Re-Leased, the only main difference for this account here is that up the top, there's now an option to see trust accounts. And so within that, I have my trust accounting hub. We have bank link integrations with most of the major banks in Australia. The reconciliation process is very similar to what you have in Xero, where we've got the automatic matching of the invoices and the transactions. You've got a full ledger list for all the different property owners. And I can see all of the accounts here. And then it also has an automatic disbursement process where it pays out creditors and management fees and everything as well. So it is compliant within all the states in Australia, and does everything you need it to on the trust accounting side.
Oh, that's very interesting, because I know that's a massive issue for people, and it's either a massive issue or they don't realize it's a massive issue and they're just doing it wrong. But,
yeah, no,
so
absolutely.
We have had one question. How do you handle foreign exchange for clients that may have a global portfolio?
So that's really kind of reliant a lot on the accounting system side. So within Xero, essentially what's within Xero is going to be replicated there, will be seen in there. In terms of how it's displayed and Re-Leased, it kind of it displays the currency for whatever country that you're in, or whatever the browser's that you're in's natural currency. I think that question was coming from India.
No, it's actually coming from Sydney.
Oh, that wasn't from Sherrod. All right.
Yeah. No, it's from Tanya.
Yeah. So it's it will handle it to a degree, but it's not great in multi-currency settings in a single account.
Okay. Thank you for that, Sherif. So we've had another question here. We're using Xero for our accounting clients. The transactions pushed through from Re-Leased are not pushing the attachments along. Is that correct? Do the attachments, like if there's a water bill, does a copy of that push back into Xero?
That is correct. That it's a limitation at the moment from I believe from the API side, that we are working through with the Xero team, but it doesn't let the actual attachment go through. So the invoice details will go through. And what we tell our clients is that upload the invoice on whichever system you'd rather have the attachment on. So if you'd rather have the attachment in Xero, then you put it in Xero, and then that will push back into Re-Leased and have the invoice details without the PDF there.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully that's answered your question, Sherrod. When it comes to essentially what you're doing is you're invoicing tenants. When it comes to the invoicing component, is there a payment collection component of Re-Leased, or do you have a tech solution that you partner with for that?
Yes, we actually very recently, as of 2 months ago, we've integrated we call it Re-Leased Pay. So within the invoices, there's the option to make a payment, even through the tenant app. Now they can make a payment directly through there, and they've got the option to pay either via credit card or direct debit. They can set up direct debit authority as well, and that's done through Stripe as a third-party provider. But the end user will just see Re-Leased Pay as the platform that they use.
Okay, so I want to set it up that my tenant is committed to pay me on a monthly basis. Is that part of that?
That's what would happen is that they would get, when they get the invoice, I would ask my tenant to sign up to that direct debit authority. I'll know if they haven't been, but the tenant also has the ability to switch that off if, let's say, they disputed a payment, as an example.
Okay. Yeah, look, and that's obviously the collection side of it is getting the invoicing accurate is important, but then the collection side of it is quite a big deal. Now, does anyone have any other questions?
Well, on the collection side of it, Heather, actually, while you're on that note, if there wasn't any other questions, we do have, again, also within Re-Leased, the ability to, this is my arrears hub, so I can see any tenants who have outstanding payments. I can specify whether that's rent or outgoings that's outstanding as well. I can add notes here to keep track of what I've done so far or conversations that I've had. And then I can also set up templates for rules to say, this is how I want to communicate with people who have had late payments. So within this templated example, I've said that after 2 days, I want to send them a friendly email and text reminder. After 5 days, a not so friendly reminder. And after 14 days, a legal notice. And you can customize these communication templates as well, of course.
Excellent. Excellent. Oh, that's great that you've got that in there. Thank you for that. Excellent. So if there's no other questions, look, I will just add that I worked with a commercial property management client, and you were constantly chasing the dates, and you kind of had it all in an amazing spreadsheet, and you were almost always on top of it. But if one slipped up, if one pay increase slipped up, that was a significant thing that you either you lost, or you had to then get them to back pay, which was quite a hard thing to do for small businesses. So as soon as I saw Tom with this at Xerocon, I was like, excellent, this is going to solve all our problems. And we waited a little while, but then sort of came on it quite the early days. And it was such a massive time saver, and it just freed ourselves up significantly on a weekly basis. But it also, as you did talk to, it gave that person the ability to travel, which he had never had, because he was just so tied into this massive mammoth spreadsheet of monitoring everything. And I'm sure that that is quite similar to a lot of people. They're just chasing their tail. They've got it under control, chasing their tails with a spreadsheet, getting it into this solution. And so, because one of the things with the dating is some of the dates are increasing to CPI, and then some of the dates you get to propose the new increase. And that was really significant that you got them and you did them in the right time frame. Otherwise, you lost that ability to increase it and the revenue ongoing from that. But yeah, so massive. I think we estimated it saved him about 120 hours, gave him a heap of flexibility to travel. But it also, when you're a commercial property manager, it also means that you can think of other things like putting in ATM booths and putting in mobile telephone towers, which previously would have just been more hassle and more spreadsheets to deal with. But it was like, oh, we've got all this hassle has been massively reduced. And so we were actually able to generate far more income with all the free time. So not that I'm spruiking Re-Leased, but I just think it's a great solution for this type of client. So there's no more questions. I'd like to thank you, Sherif. How can people get in contact with you?
So I think you're going to share my details with people after this session. You can reach out to me either just jumping on the Re-Leased website, and we've got I think our response time now is down to about 5 or 10 minutes. So we do try to get back to you really, really quickly. But you can feel free to reach out to me at sherif.hassan at reimagining.com. We've just rolled out a new partner program, because one of the things that we really are interested in is those relationships with the accountants, and particularly with landlords, which tend to be quite elusive for us because they don't really have an online presence very often. So we have rolled out a partner program, which we're happy to discuss with anyone offline as well. If anyone's got a portfolio of clients that think might definitely value having Re-Leased on board.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Sherif, and thank you for sharing your contact details there. It's been great hearing about Re-Leased today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you everyone for listening.